All right, y'all. It's Phillip, 40 Watt Podcast coming at you. Appreciate y'all tuning in today. Going to talk about a couple of things, but before we do, let's get some house cleaning, housekeeping, whatever you want to call it, out of the way. Y'all really appreciate you tuning in. So you're already either listening to the podcast or you are watching it on YouTube. Please do me a favor on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon to know when I post videos. If you are listening to the podcast, please do me a favor, hit follow, subscribe, whatever they call it on your app that you're using. Leave us a review, leave us a rating. It helps us find other listeners. I really appreciate it. You can email the podcast at 40wattpodcast@gmail.com and tell me what you think. Tell me if you want to be on the show. Give me question, topic ideas, whatever you want to leave there. We also have a Patreon where you can support the podcast. Shout out to Jeff and Kyle, my Patreons that I've got so far. Patreons. I don't know what to actually call them. A couple of folks who support what the podcast does. I really appreciate y'all. Come join the team. I'll send you stickers and other stuff as I get it. And 25% of the revenue I make from Patreon goes to charities. My charity at the end of this year is going to be St. Jude. So 25% of everything I bring in this year through Patreon is going to go to St. Jude. Y'all help some kids who are going through some pretty rough times. I raise money for St. Jude every year anyway, and this is just one more way I can do it. Also find us on Facebook, Instagram. We're not on Twitter. We're probably not going to do the Twitter thing. It's too much. We also have a Discord for our Patreon supporters. So, well, the three of us hang out over there. So if you want to support the show, really appreciate it. In the meantime, we're going to get to my guest. Y'all like how I got through all the housekeeping in under 3 minutes? I like getting straight to the interviews. So we've got Rick. Rick, I'm going to call you. Rick and Picks are way too close, but I got Rick Calhoun from Honey Picks on the show all the way from North Carolina. Y'all, if you haven't seen Honey Picks yet, you need to go follow Honey Picks on Instagram. I think you also have an Etsy store, and do you sell direct through your website?
I've got the Etsy store, and I've got a website coming, and it's pretty much ready to go. I'm just waiting for the whole like legal LLC thing to be done and finalized, and
Gotcha.
But as soon as that's done, we'll be up and ready to go.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I went through the LLC for the podcast a little while back, and like this is registered. We're a legit business. You know, for all the little bit of actually, I did it mostly instead of it's way off topic. 40 Watt Podcast. Instead of doing the podcast, I did 40 Watt Productions. So like all of my live gigging, all of my sound that I run every now and again, any consulting work I do, all of it can just be put under one big umbrella. Which is, it's nice. But y'all go check out Instagram. Y'all go check out the Etsy store. Rick is making some of the most insane picks I've ever seen. Now, before y'all turn off, before y'all go away, before you're like, how on earth can picks be interesting? Before you stop, pause this podcast, pause this video, go look at the Instagram, and then tell me you don't want to know more. And then come back, hit play. It'll be awesome. All right, Rick. So let's start with your musical journey. How'd you get into playing guitar?
Okay. So, well, I started in band and I played clarinet, and that was kind of okay. And then I switched to saxophone because it was way cooler. And I remember being in jazz band in high school, and I'm playing tenor sax. And the whole time, like, tenor sax is cool, but the whole time I'm looking over at the guitar player in jazz band, I'm like, man, that guy's so much cooler than me. That's what I want to do. And my grandpa actually, he passed away when I was a baby, but he passed down his acoustic to my dad. And my dad didn't play, but I knew there was always an acoustic guitar in his closet. And so I think I was like 10th grade. I was like 15. And I went to my dad. I said, hey, do you think I could, maybe try that guitar and maybe learn something? He said, yeah, man, go get that guitar and, go at it. So I got the guitar, and I think I had like a Mel Bay instructional book or something. But basically I was teaching myself, going to tabcrawler.com and all the different tabs and stuff like that, and learning all the wrong ways to play.
And that age before YouTube too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. There was no YouTube back. Well, there was, but it was just, it had just started.
Right.
And so, I started playing that guitar, and you know what's funny? It was about a year after I realized what I was learning on, and that was a 1965 Gibson J45.
Oh my, holy crap.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
so that's the guitar that I taught myself how to play guitar on. And so
Well,
my
it's all downhill from there.
I
That's just
know it's like I started there, and then so my next guitar. So acoustic was cool, but I wanted to play AC/DC. I wanted to play Led
right.
Zeppelin. I wanted to play, you know. And so my mom and dad took me to the local pawn shop and let me pick out a guitar and an amp. And this is where things got a little funny, you know, because I went in the guitar shop and they had a cool guitar. It was a Suzuki Strat copy, right?
Okay.
And it was a cool looking guitar and it played okay. But the amp I got was a 10-watt Gorilla amp with like a master and a tone control. And then I think that was it, just a master and a tone control.
You know,
No reverb, no nothing.
you I'm just going to pause right here. I just saw literally, it must have been this morning or last night, a guy in one of the Facebook groups that had lined his driveway with all of his Gorilla amps that he had. I was like, that's a whole lot of awful amp. I mean, that's just a whole
man,
lot
it was so bad. It was so bad. Like I couldn't figure anything out. And what I ended up doing was my mom always sang in church growing up. And mom always had a great voice. And she always practiced on a karaoke machine at home. She'd play her soundtracks through the karaoke machine, and she had reverb and delay on the karaoke machine. So I stole her karaoke machine, or and I took that and I started playing on that. I was like, man, this is way much better. This reverb, like, it's way better than that crappy grill amp, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, things have just been going on, but that's how I got into playing guitar. You know,
that's awesome.
basically like that.
So, you've been playing now for a while. So at what point did it transition from playing guitar to I want to make fancy guitar picks? Because some of your picks are pretty fancy. We talked the other day about one that you made that's like 9.3 millimeter. And I'm like, anything over 3 feels like I'm holding a brick in my hand.
Yeah, that one was pretty wild. And that guy, he custom, like, he begged me to make that for him. And I made that for him, you know. And it turns out when it gets to be 9.3, and that one had all the speed bells all around and everything. And to be honest, I didn't even try it on the guitar. I don't even know how it plays, you know. Yeah. I just made it and sent it to him. And I made another one yesterday. It was only 7 mils. So, you know, but
I'm just imagining, you know, I'm just imagining picking up, you know, like, I don't know. That's like playing with a snark tuner to me. That's like deciding I'm going to play guitar with a snark tuner.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting, but how I got into making picks, I'll get back to that.
Sure.
I guess when I was about 20, I was in college, and that was about the time that I discovered pedals and discovered different amps and different tones, and I was going on the tone journey, right?
Right.
And I found V picks. I don't know if you heard of V picks.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think I've got a couple laying around here.
Yeah.
Is that the same thing? Different thing? Because Gravity calls some of their stuff V picks, if I remember correctly. Look at that. Yeah, there's one. That's the V-Pick Stiletto. I doubt that's going to focus. There is no way the camera's going to focus on that. But yeah,
I was working back then, and I had enough money. I couldn't buy a pedal that I wanted, but in this I think I had like the Guitar Player magazine or Premier Guitar. I can't remember which one it was, but they had a little ad in it for V-Picks. I was like, oh, cool. And so I ordered the starter pack for like $20 or something. It came with like 5 picks. And I just remember, like, first time I had them, I was like, these are really cool. And then I played, I was like, Yeah, I don't really like these at all. I didn't. But when I went back to it, I kept going back to it. And I was like, the more I played it, the more I really liked it. And then the more I realized, you know, how it was just a little less effort that I had to put into it. Like it came a little easier. Faster runs came a little easier, things like that.
Yeah, you had to be willing to change the way you played a little bit to use the pick properly.
Yeah, and back then I remember I've always been into classic rock and classic blues rock, and that type of thing. And I remember I was really, really into Santana at this time. I got the V picks, and I just kept on playing repeat on the song Europa, and I just kept going on and on and on. And I remember auditioning the V pick out with like a Jazz 3 that I've been using, and I was like, oh man, there's just so much more tone. It's just more everything, like better attack, better presence, and all that. And then after playing V picks for a while, I went to gravity picks, and I got a slew of gravity picks. They're great picks.
Yeah, they're good.
And I tried Dunlop Prime Tones, and those were great picks. And but basically, all that was going on, and my brother works with me, and he's the other half of Honey Picks, and he doesn't play guitar, but he's got like an engineer in mind where he works with his hands, and he's good with different things and stuff like that. And so we have a laser machine at work. We work together, same place, and this laser machine can cut out acrylic, and we had some acrylic laying around, and we both got together, and I was like, hey Drew, you think you could make if I put in like AutoCAD and drew out a pick shape, do you think you could cut it out with a laser and we could bevel it? He's like, yeah, that'd be no problem. So we started doing that probably about February or end of January, early February last year.
Oh wow, so that's really recent.
Well, our 1 year anniversary was April 18th, and that's actually my birthday too. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was the same day.
So yeah, it is still a pretty new endeavor, you guys.
Yeah. So he cut it out, and I started beveling it with like a Dremel tool. Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And the first one we made was really crude, and it just got to a process of figuring out the best way to do it. A lot of trial and error, a lot of really ugly looking stuff coming out first. Until we finally figured out how to make a really, decent pick.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how that came out to be.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really crazy, especially looking at some of the stuff you're making now. Like there's not a whole lot of stuff you're making now that I would say, oh, that's just a laser cutter and a Dremel tool.
Yeah, we've come a long ways.
Yeah, some of these things, and I'm not going to go through and start describing y'all. I'm going to make y'all go to the Instagram account and go check them out. But yeah, you got
a pick right here, but I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Let's see.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. That is, they're wild looking. They look almost like polished stone.
See, now this has purple heart.
Yeah.
On each side.
Oh, see that.
But it has case and Galalith on the inside.
So what's the thickness on that pick? I can't tell from here.
This one's about 5.5.
That's still wild. Like I'm sitting here, this is the amount of research I do. I look through your Instagram, and then I got picks in front of me. Like we were talking about, again, more see-through picks, y'all, for you watching the YouTube channel. For those of you you're not missing a thing on the podcast, because there's no way. But this is a gravity, like a 3 mil. I think it's a 3 mil. It's got to be real close. So like their version of the XL, like Jazz 3. And then like I used, what do they call them? The big stubby, the Jim Dunlops that got like real crazy. And this is the biggest pick I've ever used. I've never even attempted to use anything bigger than this. And people look at me like I'm crazy when I play these. No, this is comfortable. But so some of the stuff you're making is and that's the other thing. Like I looked through your Etsy store a little bit, and your prices are, I'm not going to say too low. I'm not going to say, but they're really competitive for what you're making, because the picks you're making are really, really crazy. And some people say, I say some people, I said, so I'm sure other people have said, I'm not going to spend that much money on something I'm just going to lose. Right.
Right.
I've said that before, and I joked about it. I was like, oh, I'm just going to lose it. But then I remembered I've still got all 5 of the gravity picks that I got back in like 2006. I still have them, or whenever they started. I think gravity picks had only been around for about 1.5 years when I got them, and I still have all of them. So, if something's good, you'll hold on to it. You'll pay attention to where it goes. You're not going to throw your picks out in the crowd or anything.
Right. Yeah. If you do, it'd be by accident.
Yeah, by accident, or you are made of more money than I am, and you really need to go to patreon.com/40watt podcast and spread some of that wealth a little bit.
Support a brother.
Exactly. For the cost of half a pick a month, you can support this podcast. But yeah, so it's for those of you that are sticking around for a pick podcast. Picks are completely overlooked by so many players. We'll spend all day arguing the virtue of this brand of string over this brand of string, this material of nut over this or that or the other, and get into fights over this. But you're not willing to change from the nylon pick you've been using since 1992.
Right.
You got it. I discovered when I was willing to use, when I made the swap from, I don't know what Dunlop makes the original like Jazz 3s out of. It's some type of
nylon.
It's a type of nylon. It's got to be.
Yeah.
To the acrylic gravity picks, I realized I had to pull the treble back on my amp a little bit, because you get a little more attack, you get a little more presence, you get a little more punch out of it, especially when you play something. I play P90s a lot. That's my pickup of choice, and it's very mid focus. So if you want some of that high end attack, just changing your pick changes the sound of your guitar completely. And people
I like to tell people that think of different picks as like different EQ tools.
Yeah.
Like I mean,
you can get a much darker sound just by changing the pick you're using.
Yeah. I mean, you can change between a Jazz 3 or your V pick or a Honey pick, and depending on the material and the thickness, I mean, you got totally different tones.
Yeah, they're very different things, and it's like and you see some players get it, like they won't strum with a thick pick because they like that click of the thinner picks when it releases the string, or they won't, they need a little more control, so they get the thicker pick, and they get that. But when you start breaking down the material and the beveling, and just like I said, some of yours are actually works of art. Like I'd be scared to play them because not because I'll lose them, because I don't want to mess them up. They look so cool. You do the engraving like on the purple heart one you just had. That's super cool because they look really, really impressive. And so like I'd be scared to wear them. Not scared to. It's like I wouldn't want to because they look so nice. It's like when you buy a guitar that doesn't have any dings in it, and you're really scared to pick it up. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's wild, but I'm gonna order some of yours because I'm gonna have to try it. I'm gonna have to branch out. I'm gonna make myself order something I wouldn't normally play to really try it out, and then like your version of something I would normally play.
Right.
Because more people should branch out and try more picks. Like, don't be so scared of doing something different. Yes, the price is a little much when you're used to paying $0.25 a pick for the little flimsy Jim Dunlop picks, but you're gonna get a significant difference out of it. And in the end, we're talking what, $5 to $7, $5 to $8, somewhere in that range, to dramatically change your instrument.
Yeah, and I mean, it is totally different. I mean, like I said before, it's like an EQ pedal in your hand. I mean, and also if I'm playing rhythm guitar, I'm gonna have a different type of feel. I'm gonna play a little differently. I'll use a different type of pick for that. If I'm going for a lead thing with some faster runs, I'll grab a different pick. You know, it just, I think of it as a tool, you know, to change my tone.
It's a tool just like everything on the guitar. It's a tool to get the sound you're looking for. And you don't know what you're looking for until you try it out. Because I didn't know I needed a different pick. I didn't know that I'd like another pick. I was like, oh, these picks are fine. This is what I've always used, until I was willing to try something different. And sometimes I'm loaning you something. You're like, here, try this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. It's like, I mean, I kind of think about it also like I think of guitar pedals. Like, I've got certain pedals that I only use for my single coil guitars. And when I go to my humbucker guitars, they just don't sound like a tube screamer. Tube screamer to me sounds great on a Strat. Sounds awesome on a Strat. As soon as I put it on a humbucker guitar, I'm like, it don't do anything for me.
It's mushy. It's just mushy at that point.
Yeah. It doesn't do anything for me.
I'm at a weird point in my life with tube screamers. I don't actually have one currently, like any variation thereof. And that's a weird thing for me. That's not usual. I'm probably going to have to get another one at some point, but that's a whole other rabbit hole. That's to get everybody away from us that doesn't like blues rock. Y'all, we like tube screamers. It's okay to like tube screamers.
Yeah, right.
Hate. So I went and dug, for those of y'all that don't catch it, because I don't mind saying it because you might hear it in the edit. We had a little connection issue. So we're connected again. And during the little break there, I went and grabbed my pick container. Yeah, I try to stay organized.
Nice.
I had to show you the strangest pick I own. I'm going to see if it'll come through in the camera. This is called a stylus pick. So I'm going to try to get it to focus, or I may have to hold it back. But it's got, I'm going to do my best to.
It's got like a little ball tip on the end.
Yeah. So it's like, I wish this camera would focus, but I really need to upgrade camera. So let's see if I can. There we go.
There you go.
So it's got.
Yeah, that is wild.
Yeah, it's got a stylus tip at the end of it.
Huh.
Yeah, it's real. I really am bad at this, but that's okay. So yeah, it's apparently. So I found it. I didn't find it. A buddy of mine found it and gave it to me. We're gonna go back into focus here, hopefully. He gave it to me, and because he wasn't going to use it, he was like, "I just found this in a box, sitting around," and I learned later that it was a pick designed to teach you better pick technique. And so, because if you don't play it right, that ridge at the end before it tapers back down to a point will catch on the string.
Right.
So you've got to play with just like the barest tip of the pick. You can't play with a whole lot of it. And it is wild. It's very hard to play with. It's very, very difficult to play with. So I just have it. And I'll post a picture on Instagram. I'll try to take a decent picture of it. But it's a wild one. And it's impossible because my technique is god awful. So it's not worth me trying to use it. But that is the strangest pick I own. I need to branch out. Like, so what's the word? Boutique. We're gonna call them boutique pick market. We're gonna call it the boutique market because I mean, I guess that's accurate. I'm gonna try to get.
That's kind of what it is. I mean,
yeah, that's what it is. It's boutique small maker guitar picks, and that sounds bougie as hell. That just sounds so extra. Which puts it right up my alley. If you ask my wife, she says I'm completely extra. So I'm a pretty dramatic person. I try to be pretty even keel on this podcast. Y'all get real excited about some stuff. I literally sang the Lion King song about coffee earlier this evening, and my wife would you please be quiet? So yeah, I like coffee. I'm trying to ease back on my consumption of coffee because it has done really bad things to my voice. So I had a gig this past weekend. I developed nodules on my vocal cords a few years ago, and I have a coffee and diet soda addiction that the acid in those plus the caffeine drying you out has been terrible for my voice. And so I sang my first gig in over a year and did a 45-minute set, and my voice was shot. So yeah, so I'm drinking more water, trying to anyway, and way less. In fact, I had a cup tonight because I was fading. I was struggling. It's my first cup of coffee this week. And so that's really hard for me. But on that subject, we said we were going to talk about this because I'm really interested to see how it's looking like across the globe, like across the country. You're in North Carolina, correct?
Right. Yeah.
So here in Mississippi, things are starting to go back to gigging. Some people are socially distancing and keeping it real safe and outdoorsy. Some people aren't. Let's not even pretend about it. Some people are just like, fuck it. We're just going to do it. It's just it is what it is. Neither here nor there. I'm not here to get into the argument of masking or not, or social distancing or not. I'm excited to see live music returning and coming back. Are you starting to see some of that over in North Carolina too?
We're starting to see glimpses of promise in maybe the next month or the next few weeks. Like I know at church, like we've been playing outside, and we're talking about maybe in the next month going inside and playing, and so I can't, like, we're a really small rural town. So there's not really many gigs here anyway.
Yeah.
There's the ice cream / coffee shop that has gigs, but they haven't been doing anything ever since it started. But when you go to outside of our small town, you do hear of some people starting to meet outside, socially distanced and playing out, and that's just now starting. So yeah, it's looking good. I'm hopeful for it.
Yeah, I'm just stating facts. Here in Mississippi, most of the churches I know never went to outdoor sermons. They either did virtual or they just didn't care.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of our church was one of the few that obeyed the law. Kind of, most of them just was like, oh, we're having church no matter what. Yeah.
And I shouldn't say didn't care. That's a little rough. That's a little harsh to say didn't care. But and many of them met indoors, but did try to put some protocols in place.
Yeah.
They blocked off every other pew to put safety distance. But something that was not done was a lot of outdoor. And I see it going on a lot around the rest of the country, but it's also Mississippi in summer. Actually, and Mississippi fall's not kind either. I don't, there's not really a fall in Mississippi. We get about 2 weeks of 70 degrees, and then it's just rainy and cold.
North Carolina is kind of crazy about this time of year. Like we'll start out the day at like 39 degrees, and we'll end up at like 75.
Oh my God.
It's like it's such you have to go to work in like pants and long sleeve shirt, and then you're coming home and you're just like dripping sweat. It's like taking stuff off. You're just getting hot.
Yeah, I go to work in the mornings sometimes here, and I'll wear like a fleece vest or something like that because I don't want to wear a full jacket. But then by the time 1 comes around, I've already sweat so much I don't want to take the vest off because it's so hot. Yeah. Well, I'm stuck in this for the rest of the day. But yeah, so we didn't do a whole lot of outdoor stuff. I played Juke Joint Festival in Clarksdale this past weekend, and it was great. I think the attendance was good. People were as safe as they possibly could be. They were actually vaccinated. They had a tent for vaccinations at the festival, which was super cool. So you could get vaccinated at the festival if you wanted to. It was staffed by medical professionals. These weren't some festival promoters giving people shots or anything.
It's like Oh, I know that guy. Yeah, he's doing shots now. Oh, okay.
Doesn't Mike own the bar around the corner? It's like, no, that's not who was out there giving shots out.
Well, I thought he was in pharmaceuticals, but
oh no, wrong kind.
oh,
No, so it was real cool. It was great to see. Got to play outdoor. I got to play loud for the first time. So
oh yeah,
something I didn't anticipate though. So I've been playing either here in my studio at indoor. I don't know what this room is, like 20 by 18, maybe not even that, maybe even smaller than that, 16 by 18. Been playing at that volume, and I've played a couple of youth conferences that were handled very safely, and we played, and it was all direct, like Helix direct kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
The first time I've gotten to take an amp and turn it up.
Yeah.
And it was jarring. It was really caught me off guard. It's like, oh, that's what things sound like at volume. And I was actually fighting the sound on stage a little bit. Luckily, I got sound clips from out front, so it sounded great out front. But I was like, man, on stage, I was actually it was rough.
Yeah, that is wild.
So when gigs return, do you play a lot of gigs, or are you mostly a home player? You do church playing?
Mostly lately, it's all been like ever since my girls were born. Really, it's been mostly home and church.
Yeah.
What was crazy? I got just as soon as my twins were born, I got offers right then. I got offers to do a couple touring things with a couple different bands, and I would have loved it, man. And they were opening up for some pretty cool acts. And, but I mean, kids come first, so I had to tell them no. And, but yeah, I would have loved doing that, but.
Especially twins. Your wife would have felt real great if you had twins and then you went out on the road and left her with twins.
Oh man.
She was tough, but
she would have killed me, man. You know what's funny? When we had the twins, for the first 3 months, I didn't have time to play. I literally did not have time to play guitar, and I lost the calluses on my fingers.
Oh wow!
And I had, and it wasn't like I forgot how to play guitar. Like I picked it up. I remember one day I was just like, I don't care how tired I am, I'm just gonna pick that guitar up and play. And I remember it hurting. It's like, oh, I haven't felt that in a long time. And I was pretty rusty, but. I mean, when you love playing guitar, you'll do whatever you have to do it,
That's
and I just wore those calluses back on, and just no big deal.
Yeah. I have a, regular old 40, 50 hour a week job. I'm a library director. Most people, anyone who's been listening to this podcast for the last few episodes knows. And it is sometimes a struggle to either get up in the morning and play guitar and actually work on anything meaningful other than just playing the same 3 blues licks over and over and over again. But sometimes it's even harder to come home and sit down and play guitar, because if I come home and I sit down on the couch before I come in here, I'm probably not getting up off the couch. That happened last night. Actually, I came home, sat on the couch, and I worked late last night. I didn't get home until a little after 8, and came home, had dinner, I sat on the couch, and I woke up at 12:30, had fallen asleep on the couch, and then went to bed. And then I barely remember going to bed, but sometimes you just make yourself do it. I apparently need to make myself play bass a little more. I sat in and played bass for a band.
Oh yeah, I think I saw that. It was like an upright, wasn't it?
Well, it was low. That would have been even worse. Oh wow, no, it was an acoustic bass. That was like one of those Ibanez acoustic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got the message that my buddy Kingfish was sitting in for a band and they were looking for a bass player, and they couldn't find one. Then I was like, okay, I brought my bass anyway. I'll bring it and come play. No big deal, right? I just got to find an amp. And so I tracked down an amp, and about that time, they're like, oh, we got a bass player. I said, okay, you mind if I just bring my guitar and sit in? Like, yeah. So I'm going to go play my guitar. I get over there, and the bass player doesn't show up. So we're like, okay, what are we going to do? I'm like, well, they've got this acoustic bass over here. I'll just play bass. You know, they've got this little amp, like it was like a Rumble 25, like not a whole lot of power, but it was a small place, so it wasn't that big a deal.
Right.
And so I start playing, and I'm playing, and I'm fine. But about 3 songs in, the blisters on my hand start to develop, and then I develop on the pinky of my left hand from sliding and playing that. Oh man, it was terrible. It was bad. And we played for 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is cruel.
Oh, it was rough because we played with this. I feel really bad. I don't even know the name of the guy whose band I was sitting in. I was sitting in because my buddy Kingfish was in the band. We were sitting in with him, right?
Yeah, I love that guy.
Kingfish is a complete monster, and they genuinely don't make nicer people. There are no nicer people on this planet. I had an episode with him a few episodes back on the podcast. We're trying to get another one to line up so we can actually get in the same room, and it's gonna be awesome. But I don't remember the guy's name that we sat in with. But then we finished that, and then the singer is a woman by the name of Robin. Was the next act. And she was like, hey guys, I'd really rather not follow that up with just me and an acoustic guitar. Do y'all mind playing behind me? And Kingfish was like, sure. And I was like, all right, fine. We'll do that. And so we played a whole nother set with Robin. And I was like, oh, my hand hurts so bad.
Oh my gosh, man.
But it was such a cool gig. You can't turn them down. Like Clarksdale's such a weird, interesting place. Like, yeah, we've got Kingfish, who is like the most recent in a long line of amazing blues players to come out of Clarksdale, Mississippi, or at least in the surrounding area, right? I mean, this is the same town that John Lee Hooker, Earl Hooker, Sam Cooke, Ike Turner, Muddy Waters, they're all from Clarksdale, from where I'm from. And then there's exactly legends. And then there's a slew of people nobody even talks about. You've got your there's a guy that goes by the name of Super Chicken, James Super Chicken Johnson. He's amazing. You had there's just, I'm not going to try to go through the whole list. That's just too long. It's too ridiculous. Go to the Wikipedia page. You'll see them all. There's so many that come out of it. But then we've also got like the guy that's playing drums for us. Like, remember, you can go on Instagram and see the pictures if you want to see the gig. The picture doesn't have the drummer who is actually the drummer for the gig. There was another guy sitting in when I took the picture. But the guy that was playing for the gig, his name's Joe Eagle. Joe used to play for Albert King. Joe used to play for Little. You know what I mean? Like, Joe is the shit. Joe's legit. And
Albert King is one of my favorites, man.
Man, me too. I play in my blue set when I do the big 4 hour. I promise I spend at least an hour on nothing but Albert King tunes because it's just unbelievable. And I don't do them justice, and I know it, but that's totally okay with me.
Yeah, nobody can do it justice.
No,
I mean only Albert.
He had those hands, man.
Yeah,
and Albert King's like I talk about playing the same 3 blues licks over and over again. And with all due respect to Albert King played the same 3 blues licks over and over and again. And that man meant it.
Yeah, he did.
He did. He meant it. And so Joe Eagle, I've played with Joe a bunch of times. Joe is my 2-degree separation from Albert King. You know what I mean? That's as close as I'm going to get to having shared a stage with Albert King. That's it. Oh,
and it's like you're that close, but like you're in Clarksdale, like you're learning like real blues. You know, you're learning the roots of it all. You know, that's awesome. I would love to visit just to sit in and listen to the guys play. You know,
it's wild because you're like growing up in Clarksdale. To be really honest, and people didn't really talk about the blues, and it didn't matter. Black, white, didn't matter. Nobody talked about it. Like it wasn't a thing. Then I moved to outside of Nashville, and then everybody talked about Clarksdale. Everybody knew what was in that town. And then I lived in Nashville in 2002 and 2003. Well, I lived in Murfreesboro outside of Nashville. It's just so much easier to say Nashville.
Right. It's all Nashville anyway.
Exactly. It's Nashville East now. Murfreesboro is giant now. When I lived there, it was like 75,000 people. Now it's like 150,000 people. It's
wow.
nuts. So I moved back home, and suddenly there was this resurgence of blues music happening in Clarksdale, and this tourism that was starting to happen. People were talking about it now. And so it was real cool because I didn't start learning guitar until late in life. I learned at 18. And, so if anybody wants to do the math, I moved to Murfreesboro when I was 21. So I'd only been playing for about 3 years before I moved to Nashville. And so it's a crazy thing. The more and more I realized the people I ran into, the people that I saw, like I can remember sitting next to Little Milton in a Wendy's before I realized it was Little Milton. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Or like the time I got to sit down and talk to Honey Boy Edwards. If you know who Honey Boy Edwards is, it's okay if you don't. A lot of people don't. Honey Boy Edwards was the last living person we know played with Robert Johnson.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, there's Robert Johnson too, but and Honey Boy was one of the greatest people. I've talked about his book on my podcast before. The World Don't Owe Me Nothing. It's an incredible book. You have to read it.
Cool.
It paints this great picture of the blues migration from the Mississippi Delta into the south side of Chicago. It's so cool.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Cool.
If you like blues, you got to read that book.
I need to read that.
But yeah, this is one of the things I will sit and talk about Clarksdale all day long because I think it's that cool. And it's not that like North Carolina has such a deep music heritage too. Like where you are has got a great music heritage. It's just a different one.
I mean, you don't have to travel very far to be able to find some pickers, but it's not blues and rock. We got that.
Yeah.
But what we specialize in more of is like just downright bluegrass, man. Like I'm closer to the mountains, and the closer you get to the Appalachian Mountains, the more you get into the bluegrass. And there's a ton of guys that can just flat pick, just go to town. You know, I like to listen to it. You know, it's not my favorite music, but it's just all around us. So you're going to listen to it. But there are some amazing pickers that play that style.
Yeah,
and it's a totally different style of play. Like I just do my dad blues riff pentatonic scale all day long, and I play the same riffs all the time, and I can't, like, bluegrass is so foreign to me to try to play. It's a totally different way of playing.
I think of bluegrass. This is weird. I think of bluegrass sort of the same way I think of blues. The bluegrass has a form, and a lot of people don't that way. There's a form. There's a repertoire that everyone's supposed to know, just like blues.
Yep.
You can go to a jam and everybody calls out a tune, and you're supposed to know how to play Cripple Creek. You're supposed to know how to play XYZ tune that they're going to call out. And they're both restrictive forms of music. People develop voices inside that box. And to give you an idea of how the Clarksdale I grew up with, how out of touch they were with how important they were to the musical heritage. The Chamber of Commerce in Clarksdale, when I was a kid, would give more money to the bluegrass festival that came through Clarksdale than to the blues festival that was in Clarksdale.
Oh, that's completely backwards.
It's completely backwards. We're not going to go into depth as to why I believe that was done, but I think it had a lot to do with the race of the people playing blues music at the time and the people who were over the Chamber of Commerce. Not to throw them completely under the bus. There are some very wonderful, very welcoming people who were on that Chamber of Commerce at the time, but this is why I'm also not saying even what year it was, so nobody can go back and find who these people were. But there were some really misguided ideas deciding where money went to and what kind of business and tourism and what we were talking about Clarksdale was known for.
Right.
But you can't get away from it. I mean, that I've gotten to play with so many cool people in Clarksdale. I got to play with Ike Turner's son at one point. That was real cool. He's a piano player now.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's based out of Tulsa. Let's see. Oh, I need to be able to remember this story correctly. Ike Turner's mother was the midwife that delivered my grandmother. Like,
really?
That's
cool.
In a town like Clarksdale. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. I think my mother will haunt me if I got that story wrong, and it was like my aunt and not my grandmother or something like that. But I'm pretty sure that's the way that story goes.
I'd hold on to that because that's just cool, man.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, those are the cool things. Really, what this podcast is becoming is an ad for your picks and for Clarksdale tourism. I really should charge them for kind of airtime.
You know, another thing I was thinking about, like the parallel between bluegrass and blues. Another thing that I think about that, like I'm sure you deal with this in Clarksdale, but like if I go into a music store and a guy asks me what kind of music I like to play, I'll say blues rock, right? And there's always the fear of running into that guy who's like a purist, like a blues purist. And the bluegrass guys are the same way. Like if you say Bela Fleck and Fleck, oh, they're not bluegrass.
Yeah, they're not bluegrass.
Bela Fleck, that's fancy banjo. That's not bluegrass. That's
Steely's not bluegrass to them. Creek was bluegrass to them.
It's like Joe Bonamassa, he's not blues. He don't play blues. He plays rock. If you get all this stuff, and I'm like, you know what? It doesn't really matter what you want to call it. To me, it's got blues rhythms in it and blues lead lines in it, and it doesn't matter one way or the other. If you want to call it blues rock or if you want to call it rock, I don't care. That's just what I play. But I'm not gonna belittle somebody for not playing a 12-bar blues standard and do it completely clean and do it one way only. Otherwise we'd all be bored.
You're right, and that's the thing is like there's so much there. The it's not even just the purists. It's often just it's musicians in general looking for a reason to not like what somebody else is doing. So I had Ariel Posen on the podcast a little while back, and something he said, because I talked about this, and it's sort of a stance that I want us to start pushing forward as music comes back. And as we, as musicians, go out and hear live music, if we want to compliment the bands that we hear, don't compliment the gear first. Compliment the music first. Like, don't compliment the thing they could buy in a store. Let's compliment the creativity or the skill or whatever it is. Even if they're playing picture perfect covers, there's not a creative note in the entire set. That takes skill. That's not easy. I don't care who you are or who you're covering. Compliment that first. But something Ariel said was that sometimes we as guitarists are not good with compliments. We're not good at giving them. And so we default to gear. Or we, unfortunately, now I'm adding my own here. Unfortunately, sometimes we default to negativity instead of trying to compliment someone and not just tell someone they're good at something. I think Joe Bonamassa, he gets a ton of flack. Music is not my preferred style of blues and or rock, but I think he's immensely talented. I think he has incredible talent. I think he's a nicer guy than people give him credit for. Actually, if you watch enough interviews with him, he doesn't take himself too seriously. He understands who he is. Now some of his press releases kind of make him sound like he thinks he's way too much, but he as a whole is pretty self-deprecating. He's just a guy who loves playing guitar and loves playing in front of people, and he does a great job. He's obviously got a really good following. So I don't see the hate there. I don't understand it. A lot of people want to even hate on like Stevie Ray Vaughan. I'm like, hey, okay, look, Albert King wanted to play with him, so
Yeah, I mean,
invite
when
me.
you have an album with Albert King,
Right.
I mean, that's one of my favorite albums of all time, man. I love that album.
It's
Just
album.
and Stevie is one of my all-time favorite players. Just I think all of us go through like a Stevie phase where we just want to just like I just listen to everything he's ever done and just binge listen for years.
Yep,
never get tired of listening to him play. And
I've got a buddy of mine, Jacob. He's a killer. He's a killer guitar player. Loves Stevie. We were sitting down the other day. We were talking about Stevie, and we were talking about Dumble amps, and we were talking about Dumble inspired amps, and we got to talking about it. And he was like, "Yeah, well," he said, "my favorite albums anyway are Stevie's early albums before he started adding the Dumble and blah blah blah." I said, "Whoa, hold up!" I was like, "No." He was trying to explain. He was basically trying to explain away why he didn't want a Dumble or a Dumble inspired. Because no, let's be honest, most of us aren't going to be able to afford a Dumble.
No.
Dropping 75 to 100K on an amp is not in my agenda. But I told him, no, he had a Dumble on Texas Flood, like
right.
that was recorded with Jackson Brown's Dumble. He just didn't own one yet. He didn't go on the road with one. And he was like, "Oh," I said, "Yeah." So that sound you're used to hearing, that's Stevie through a Dumble and probably like 3 other amps, but whatever.
Right.
I can remember. So there's a magic, and this is where a ton of people have stopped this podcast. If I'm going to start talking about Stevie Ray Vaughan, there was that second appearance on Austin City Limits. There is something about that appearance. He was clean and sober.
Yeah.
He I think that was the one he brought his brother out, and his brother played with him some. And I think that was the best playing I ever heard from him, was that second episode of Austin City Limits. And I have heard Derek Trucks, John Mayer, and John Frusciante all reference that second appearance on Austin City Limits as a major influence for them.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the same thing for me. Remember, I grew up in Clarksdale, and it took Stevie Ray Vaughan for me to get into the blues. Because I remember falling asleep with PBS on and woke up in the middle of the night, and that episode was on when I woke up. I did not go back to sleep. Just did not happen. And that changed my world. I was an acoustic church player until that point. I had no real interest in playing electric guitar or lead electric guitar or whatever you want to call it until I saw that episode.
Yeah, and it's it's funny you said like PBS. One of my earliest memories of wanting to play guitar, I was just a kid. I must have been, I don't know, maybe 10 years old, and mom and dad got PBS on, and I'm watching this guy up there, and he's got a voice like you've never heard before, and he's up there and he's just playing the guitar, and I'm like, "Dad, who is that?" He's like, "Son, that's BB King." I'm like, "Dad, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen." I was just getting excited, seeing BB King. And BB King stuck in my mind as a 10-year-old, like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. I want to do that."
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Fun BB King story. Well, first of all, so Stevie Ray Vaughan led me to Johnny Lang, which led me to BB King. And to this day,
really?
BB King and Albert King are my 2 biggest influences. I've been really, really lucky. I've been through phases. I went through like a Brian Setzer phase at one point, and I was playing nothing but like West Coast swing and like up blues and stuff like that. And I went through a Santana phase where everything was in Phrygian mode. Just didn't matter if it was supposed to be; it just was. But I did get a chance. I opened for BB King twice. At his homecoming festival in Indianola. Now, here's the thing, though. I opened for him. I never actually got to meet him. Like, it was that, like, because he was on his bus, and like, But he has a museum, the BB King Museum in Indianola, Mississippi. A buddy of mine messaged me one night and said, "Hey, BB King's in Indianola the night before the festival. I wasn't playing the festival this year, the homecoming concert. He said BB King's going to do a master class the night before." And I was like, "What? Okay."
Awesome.
So I got there early, and me and my buddy sat on the front row of this master class, and I sat 5 feet from BB King and his band while he just talked us.
Oh man.
And like I have this pick while we're talking about guitar picks. I'm gonna make it focus on it because it's just too cool not to. Wrong way. It's one of BB's picks. These are the kinds he would throw out in the audience. But this one he didn't throw. This one he put in my hand. You know what I mean? It's like one of those like coolest moments ever.
That is so cool, man.
But you'll appreciate this. BB King started out on clarinet.
He did.
He started out on
clarinet.
clarinet.
Know that.
He was like,
I didn't know that.
I can't remember if it was 8 years old or 8th grade. It may have been 8 years old, but yeah, BB King could read music, the whole 9 yards. Now he said he wasn't any good at it anymore because he never does it, never did it there. Probably since he was 18 or older, he never read music again. But he could do it, and he played clarinet.
Yeah,
so
that's cool, man. I didn't know that.
Yeah, one of the coolest guys. One of those that I would have absolutely given anything to play with BB King. That they don't get better than that. They just do not get better. Actually, I'm going to shout him out and call him out on it. My buddy Kyle, who's one of the Patreons for this podcast, just bought one of the BB King Lucille's, the Gibson Lucille guitars.
Yeah.
Those things are so cool. It's so cool. I don't know. I'm going to end up waxing nostalgic about BB King all night if I keep on. But so yeah, that was, and I'm from Clarksdale. It took Stevie to get me to BB.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. That's
wild.
It doesn't happen now. Clarksdale's a blues town now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I definitely started with BB and then went to Stevie, and then I just went through everybody after that. Albert. Freddie, Buddy Guy, and then I got hip to like some of the newer guys like Robin Ford.
Yeah.
And that's more like blues jazz. And then Matt Schofield and Johnny Lang about the same time as those guys. And Phillip Sace, and it's just a ton of them. They're all different, but they're all amazing players. Josh Smith is awesome.
Oh yeah, we can't even mention Josh Smith. Doesn't even make sense to me. And Kirk Fletcher.
And Josh. Oh yeah. Kirk is the man. Like Josh Smith, when I hear him play, and he is like, and he looks like he's got like sausage fingers, man. Right. It looks like but he can play the fastest Stevie lines so clean.
Yep.
So clean, and it's like, dang, he's like playing it cleaner than Stevie played it. It just. I don't know how he did it. And he's using like, I think 12 gauge strings or 13 gauge strings or something.
I think they're bigger than that. Yeah, I really do.
Just amazing.
We all went through our Strat with 13s phase tuned to E flat at some point. So
yeah,
I'll tell you who my guy is right now, besides Kingfish. I love Fish, but Alvin Youngblood Hart. I think more people need to be talking about him. Alvin Youngblood Hart, he's been around a while. He's not a young cat on the scene. Check him out. He does everything from straight ahead acoustic Delta blues.
Yeah.
To he had a progressive rock 3-piece.
Okay.
He plays it all, and he's a monster at all of it.
Huh.
Yeah. So if you get a chance, check out Alvin Youngblood Hart.
I would think that I would know him from at least something. I mean, I've seen him, but I just don't recognize the name.
That's possible. Yeah. It's very possible, but I would definitely check him out and give him a listen. Like I said, he's done everything, recorded and put out everything from acoustic Delta blues to a legitimate, honest 120 decibel progressive rock trio. It's nuts. Well, I'll tell you what, Rick, we've been going for a little bit, and we're going to wrap things up here in just a little bit, but I really appreciate you coming on the show, talking about your picks.
Yeah,
if
man.
you made it this far in the podcast or YouTube video, thank you, because we
Congrats.
congrats. You deserve some applause. I'm a fan of you at this point. There are going to be links below for Honey Picks. There are going to be links below for all of my 40 Watt Podcast social media, Patreon, the whole 9 yards. Check those out. Hope to hear from you. Email, Instagram, Facebook, Patreon, however you want to get in touch with me. I'm around. Honey Picks. Rick is around, and he's ready to make you some picks. I promise not all of his picks are the 7 and 9 millimeter monstrosities we talked about. I talk about those because those are the really interesting ones. You do some pretty straight ahead just with your own style. So there's all kinds of options available. I'm going to be ordering some here in the next couple of days, try to get some in and try those out, and hope that I don't fall too much in love with them, because I'm scared to fall in love with expensive picks, because then I've got to have a collection of them, just in case. It's like,
that's right.
In guitars, I need a backup to my backup's backup. So, well, Rick, I'm going to let you go. And I appreciate you coming on tonight. And I guess for the rest of y'all, y'all take care of yourselves, be good to each other, and make some noise.
Yeah, man.